There is a window in your financial life that most people don't even notice until it's already closing. It doesn't announce itself. There's no alarm, no warning label. It just quietly opens sometime around your 30th birthday and starts closing every single year after that. The cruel irony is that the years when that window is widest open are also the years when you feel least urgency to act. You have time, you tell yourself. You'll figure it out. You'll start when things settle down. But things don't settle down. Life accelerates, and the window keeps closing. 57% of Americans say they plan to start seriously saving for retirement someday. But the data on what someday actually costs is something most people never sit down and look at. They hear the advice. They nod at the concept. They scroll past the article, and then they go back to their lives, vaguely intending to do something about it eventually. Which is exactly what someday means. Not never, not a refusal, just a perpetual, comfortable postponement that costs more every single year it continues. By the end of this, you'll know exactly where you fall, and the answer might surprise you. Your 30s feel like the middle of the story. You're past the chaos of your 20s. You finally have some income. Maybe a career that's starting to make sense. The emergencies that defined your 20s, the job hunts, the bad roommates, the credit card you maxed out and quietly paid down, feel further in the rearview mirror. You have more stability, more clarity, and retirement feels far enough away that it doesn't feel urgent yet. That feeling is the most expensive mistake you will ever make. Here is the number that changes everything. A 25-year-old who invests $400 a month into a standard index fund, earning a 7% average annual return, will have approximately $1.1 million by age 65. That same person, if they wait until 35 to start, will have around $524,000. Same $400, same fund, same discipline, just 10 years later. The difference is $576,000. Not because they earned less, not because they made bad investments, not because one person worked harder or got lucky or chose better stocks, simply because they waited 1 decade. 1 decade of inaction, of meaning to start, of waiting for the right moment, and the cost of that wait is more than $500,000. That is what your 30s are worth, more than $500,000, sitting in the gap between starting now and starting later. This is compound interest, and your 30s are the last time it still has enough runway to do its most powerful work. The math is not complicated, but it is relentless. Money invested early does not just grow. It grows, and then that growth grows, and then that growth grows again. Each year builds on the last. Each decade multiplies what the previous decade created. It is not a straight line. It is a curve that bends upward, and the longer you wait to board, the more of that curve you miss entirely. Let that land for a second. After 40, you are not compounding. You are catching up. And catching up is expensive. It requires more money, more sacrifice, and less margin for the inevitable setbacks, the job loss, the medical bill, the economic downturn that life will deliver whether you plan for them or not. Compounding is patient. Catching up is not. Now here is where most people make the first of 5 mistakes that quietly derail everything. Mistake number 1 is lifestyle inflation. You get a raise in your 30s, and almost immediately your expenses rise to meet it. New apartment, better car, more dinners out, a streaming service here, a subscription box there. None of it feels extravagant in isolation. Each upgrade feels earned, reasonable, deserved. Your income goes up, and your savings rate stays exactly the same. Sometimes it drops. You are making more money than you ever have, and somehow saving no more than you did when you were broke. This is not a discipline problem. It is a design problem. Human beings adapt to their circumstances with extraordinary speed, and that includes income. Whatever you earn becomes your new normal within months. The solution is not to resist this. It is to design around it. The fix is a single rule. Every time your income increases, at least 50% of that increase goes directly to savings or investments before you ever see it. Automate it. Make it invisible. Because the moment that money hits your checking account, your brain has already spent it. The upgrade has already been mentally purchased. The only way to win that battle is not to fight it, to route the money around the decision entirely. Mistake number 2 is ignoring your 401k match. If your employer offers a match and you are not contributing enough to capture the full amount, you are turning down part of your salary. That is the only way to describe it. Not leaving it on the table, not missing an opportunity. Turning down money that was offered to you directly, in writing, as part of your compensation package. The average employer match in the United States is around 4% of your salary. On a $70,000 income, that is $2,800 per year. Left on the table, every year. For a decade, that is $28,000, before any investment growth. Invested over 30 years at 7%, that uncaptured match could have grown into well over $100,000. This is the single most immediate fix available to almost anyone in their 30s. It costs nothing extra. It requires one form. And yet the majority of employees who are eligible for a match are not capturing it fully. Mistake number 3 is treating your home as your retirement plan. Home ownership builds equity. That is real, but a house does not compound the way a diversified investment portfolio does. It does not pay dividends. It does not automatically reinvest its returns. It requires maintenance, insurance, taxes, and unexpected repairs that erode the equity you believe you're building. And you cannot draw income from equity without either selling your home or taking on debt. Many Americans in their 30s pour every spare dollar into their mortgage, while their retirement accounts sit nearly empty, believing they are building wealth when they are actually building something they cannot access without disrupting their entire life. The math does not work in their favor. Mistake number 4 is carrying high-interest consumer debt as a permanent condition. Credit cards at 22% interest. Car loans. Buy now, pay later plans stacked on top of each other. Each one small enough to feel manageable. All of them together constituting a slow leak that never fully gets plugged. Every dollar paying 22% interest is a dollar that is not compounding at 7% in an index fund. That spread, 22% going out versus 7% coming in, is the reason some people work their entire lives and still arrive at retirement with almost nothing. They were always earning. They were never building. The approach that works: list every debt by interest rate, highest first. Attack the top one aggressively while paying minimums on everything else. When it is gone, roll that payment into the next one. It is not complicated. It just requires starting. Mistake number 5 is the one nobody talks about: not having a financial identity. Most people in their 30s cannot answer a simple question: what number do I actually need to retire? Not a vague feeling. Not enough to be comfortable. A real number. If you want $60,000 per year in retirement and you follow the 4% withdrawal rule, you need $1.5 million saved. That is your target. Everything else, your 401k contributions, your investment choices, your savings rate, should be working backward from that number. A target transforms financial decisions from guesses into choices. Without it, you are moving in a direction you cannot evaluate because you have never defined where you are trying to go. Without a target, every financial decision is a guess. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Because knowing the mistakes is only half the picture. The other half is understanding what you should actually be building in your 30s, and why the window for building it efficiently closes faster than almost anyone expects. The most important thing you can do in your 30s is not find the perfect investment. It is not time the market. It is not wait until you have more money to start. All three of those instincts are traps dressed up as prudence. The perfect investment does not exist. Timing the market has been shown, repeatedly and definitively, to underperform simply staying invested. And waiting until you have more money is exactly what 57% of Americans are already doing, and why they are behind. It is to make saving automatic and boring. Here is what that looks like in practice. You set your 401k contribution to at least enough to capture the full employer match on day one of any new job, not eventually. You open a Roth IRA if your income qualifies and contribute to it monthly by automatic transfer. In 2024, the contribution limit is $7,000 per year. That is $583 per month. If that feels like too much, start at $200. Start at $100. The amount matters less than the habit. A small, consistent contribution that runs for 30 years will outperform a large, inconsistent contribution that runs for 10. Consistency beats intensity every time. A Roth IRA grows tax-free. Every dollar it earns over the next 30 years will never be taxed again. For someone in their 30s, that tax-free compounding is one of the most powerful financial tools available in the United States. And most people in their 30s have never opened one. The investment itself does not need to be complicated. A low-cost total market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund set to automatic monthly investment outperforms the majority of actively managed funds over any 20-year period. The data on this is not close. Boring wins. The fund manager who charges 1.2% and makes bold strategic decisions will, on average, trail the index fund that charges 0.03% and does nothing. This is not a theory. It is decades of documented performance. Your emergency fund belongs in a high-yield savings account, not a checking account earning nothing. Right now, high-yield savings accounts are paying around 4 to 5% annually. 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting there earning 4% is not dead money. It is the cushion that keeps you from raiding your investment accounts every time life sends you an unexpected bill. Without it, every financial emergency becomes a retirement setback. With it, emergencies are absorbed rather than compounded. And here is something your 30s require that your 20s did not: protecting your income. You are your most valuable financial asset right now. Not your home, not your portfolio. You, your ability to earn. If you became unable to work tomorrow, for 6 months or 2 years, what happens to everything you are building? The contributions stop. The mortgage doesn't. The bills don't. And the retirement account you spent years building becomes the emergency fund you never properly funded, drawn down faster than you ever planned. Most employers offer some level of short-term disability coverage. Check yours. For long-term disability, a supplemental policy is worth understanding. This is the financial protection most people in their 30s skip entirely, and the one that can unravel everything else if it is missing. Now let's talk about something the finance world almost never addresses. Building wealth in your 30s is 20% strategy and 80% behavior. You can understand every concept in this video and still make no progress, because the barrier is almost never information. Everyone knows they should save more. Everyone has heard of compound interest. Everyone, somewhere in the back of their mind, is aware that they are probably behind. The barrier is psychology. There is a concept called present bias. Your brain is wired to value what is happening right now, the vacation, the dinner, the upgrade, far more than what will happen 30 years from now. The pleasure of spending today is immediate and concrete. The benefit of investing that same money feels distant and abstract. Your future self, the one who will desperately need that money at 65, has no voice in the conversation happening in your brain right now. Only your present self gets a vote, and your present self wants the nicer thing. This is why discipline is not the answer. Discipline requires you to win that internal debate, repeatedly, every month, for decades. No one wins that debate consistently. Automation is the answer. When the right behavior is the default behavior, when your savings transfer happens before you ever see the money, when your 401k contribution comes out before your paycheck hits your account, you never have to make the decision in the moment. And in the moment, your brain will always vote for the immediate reward. Automation removes the vote. It makes the responsible choice the only choice, quietly in the background, every single month. There is also something worth naming directly. Many people in their 30s carry a quiet shame around money. They feel behind. They avoid looking at their accounts because the number there triggers anxiety, a low-grade dread that hums beneath the surface of normal life. They know they should be doing more, and that knowledge itself becomes a reason to avoid the topic entirely. If I don't look at it, I don't have to feel bad about it. If I don't calculate the gap, I don't have to face how wide it is. If that is familiar, you are not alone. And the shame is not useful. It does not generate returns. It does not close the gap. The only thing that is useful is a starting point, however uncomfortable that number is today. The person who opens their accounts, faces the number honestly, and starts contributing $100 a month is in a better position than the person who earns twice as much and never looks. Here is the honest picture of where most Americans in their 30s actually stand. The median net worth for Americans aged 35 to 44 is approximately $135,000, according to the Federal Reserve's 2022 survey of consumer finances. Most of that is locked in home equity. Liquid, investable wealth for the average 35-year-old is a fraction of that number, often under $30,000. In a country that constantly projects images of affluence, the actual financial position of the average person in their 30s is fragile, not catastrophically so, but fragile enough that a single serious disruption, a medical crisis, a layoff, a divorce, can wipe out years of progress. That is the reality. It is not a disaster, but it is a gap. And your 30s are the last decade where closing that gap is still relatively straightforward. The contributions required are still manageable. The runway is still long enough for compounding to do meaningful work. The sacrifices, though real, are not yet painful. After 40, the math gets harder. The contributions need to be larger. The sacrifices more significant. The runway shorter. What cost $400 a month at 25 costs $900 a month at 40 to reach the same destination. The destination doesn't move. The price of the ticket does. Your 30s are not a warm-up act. They are the moment the game actually starts. And here is what separates the people who arrive at 65 with real financial freedom from the people who arrive anxious and dependent on a fixed income that barely covers their expenses. It is not income. Some of the wealthiest retirees in this country were teachers, nurses, postal workers, and tradespeople who never earned six figures. It is not luck. It is not a windfall or an inheritance or a perfect investment. It is not knowing something others don't, or making one brilliant move that changed everything. None of the stories that end well are really about a single decision. It is consistency. Decade after decade of ordinary decisions, contributing when it felt unnecessary, staying invested when the market dropped, resisting the lifestyle inflation that absorbed every raise, keeping the target in view even when it felt impossibly far away. The market crashed in 2001, 2008, and 2020. The people who stayed invested recovered. The people who sold locked in their losses and missed the rebounds. It is not that the consistent investor is smarter. It is that consistency, by definition, means you are there for the good years because you didn't leave during the bad ones. The people who build real wealth in their 30s are not the ones who figured out something everyone else missed. They are the ones who started and did not stop. The window is open right now. The only question worth sitting with tonight is this: what would it cost you, in real numbers, to wait one more year?